Somebody made a comment on my channel pointing out that in the case of the Delphi case, a location was given as a GPS, and it was quote unquote oopsed or accidentally released in the form of a file that was released. Now, this file is from May 17th, 2022, and it was released as showing a PDF file, which you can download. The link below the description goes to docdroid.net. Hopefully that won't be censored by YouTube and Google for some stupid reason. I'll also try to create an imager containing all of it and removing the stupid watermark. Now, I want to point out some inconsistencies in the way this is being interpreted. I'm not playing devil's advocate here. I'm just pointing out that it is not clear. Please understand that an affidavit issued by the FBI or your local police department to any judge or legal body or whatever can be tolerated even if it has some nonsensical BS in it. It doesn't have to be dead on perfect. Yes, that's kind of a joke about Donald Trump. To do any kind of search of any property. All searches for property are at discretion of the judge. There has to be strong evidence provided. Now, you can read the thing, and basically it's saying, we have a bunch of reasons to examine this person's property and this person because they kind of fit a description for the person who was on the bridge. And it was for a location. And there was a probation violation and factually testable false statements made by Ron Logan. There was also an attempt to provide himself an alibi long before anybody knew of the deaths or the missing girls being dead. And it's presuming that this could be interpreted as him trying to create an alibi when he wouldn't have known when the alibi would be needed. They determined later that it was happenstance. He simply picked that time of day pretty much arbitrarily. And he's probably not doing anything like that. He might have wanted to create an alibi for some other reason. He's saying someone drove him in a car when he was prohibited from driving a car. His main interest may have been not violating his parole by driving. There was a 2017 March 6th execution of a search warrant by law enforcement at his home only, and a limited search warrant. At the time, they observed things that could indicate that he could be a technical murder suspect. That and the fact that he violated his probation, they figured throw the book at the guy and get him off the list, and more importantly, gain absolutely the highest level of being able to research the guy and investigate him to find out whether or not there's anything there. Also, to technically clear the person. I mean, I understand it's really nasty having your life turned upside down and people invading it, but they can't claim that you're hiding anything if you're not able to, if they come into the building and search. So, by the 17th of the month, 11 days later, there was an 11-page FBI affidavit submitted to request a search of all property, not just the interior of his house superficially. And this was released years later, 5 years later, over 5 years later, from a podcast showing a PDF, and it was the Murder Sheet podcast. Now, I can't tell if this is authentic, simply because it's not difficult to phony something up. But let's assume it's valid. I have no problem doing so. Logan Warrant, final redacted version, Doc Droid, and I'm not seeing a time and date stamp of authorship being really clearly indicated in the PDF file, which is a very unusual thing. That bothers me. But let's take it at face value. Page 1 of it, under item listing 1, it has this information. 2017, February 13th at 2:13 p.m. It has a bunch of things implied in this because of previous paragraphs or subsequent paragraphs, excuse me. LG and AW were walking the trail in the area of County Road West 300 North. That's that one that goes left to right when you look at it on the map. And County Road N for North 575 West. That's the road going north to south. Near, and then it gives latitude and longitude. Now, it says 2:17 p.m. the next day, just after noon, LG and AW were located at the above listed latitude and longitude, deceased. And I also converted it to a decimal number. Now, that's not actually near where they were walking. Remember, it says they were walking the trail in the area of that, but we don't know that. And remember, this is an affidavit that's supposed to be sworn under penalty of perjury to get a search warrant. Or the police were indicating they suspected that they were walking near the area, or they were literally found at that location. Now, this is where a bunch of people come up with a question, and I'm just going to answer it. Yes, the police, to get a search warrant, will falsify an assumption or make an assumption, at least a little white lie, to get a warrant to search a property, because the property is listed as being 1,400 feet away from this GPS location they're giving. Now, the assertion is, isn't that showing the coordinates of exactly where the two girls were found? No. A bunch of people have decided that's the location, but this isn't an indication of it because of the nature of how it's being presented. In the area near the road, that junction is not where they were found. It's close to his house. They're trying to show that his house needs to be accessed. Police officers never lie in such a way that it would let them get away with searching your house. Okay, as long as you execute a warrant with permission from a judge and can get away with it, whether you're telling the truth in the affidavit is not relevant because you have limited immunity from prosecution, even if you commit an actual crime by lying. Next, some girls went missing and then they were found dead. I don't think they cared anymore about following rules. Next, is that actually the GPS location they were found at? Now, the reason I'm saying I doubt this is because of the way the damn thing's worded. It's worded in such a way that a judge would be compelled to issue a search warrant, and it's about a completely unrelated thing, at least it's being presented that way, and it's also related to the girls being dead as an excuse to search his house. I call BS. I don't believe this is the exact GPS location of the bodies. The approximate location is what they were indicating first, and then they said, almost exact quote, they were located at the above listed latitude and longitude. Unless the police department making a separate statement that the two girls were found at 40, 35, 21 by 86, 38, 23, exclusively that. Irrelevant to this. Just say that's where they were found. Point it out on a map and say it was precisely at this location. Unless they're willing to actually confirm that, I'm going to assume, not because I'm trying to fight some narrative here, I'm going to assume that this warrant was filled out so they would get a warrant. Oh, we made a mistake because you could type a GPS location wrong very easily. That's why it's so bad that we use latitude and longitude as degrees, minutes, and seconds. Degrees, minutes, and seconds are considered archaic because the notation used requires that you type in the degree symbol, which is not available on many keyboards, and know exactly what you're doing and get it right the first time, versus just decimal numbers with a comma and a plus or minus sign and another set of numbers, like we do when we look up stuff through Google's version of GPS. Decimal degrees and then fractions only, not degrees, minutes, and seconds. When people do that, I object to it strongly. I've even seen a court paper, not related to this, where a judge said, putting it in degrees, minutes, and seconds, but you only include degrees and minutes, means you're talking about 1/60th of a 70-mile range, because each degree on the planet's surface, at biggest, is 70 miles. So you're narrowing it down to a mile. That's not good enough. It was an area out in the middle of the desert, but it was a piece of paper talking about the location where they were going to search. Not good enough. Plus or minus 1 mile isn't good enough, because degrees, minutes, and seconds is a mile. A degree is about 70 miles. Minutes is 1/60th of 70 miles. So it's a little over a mile width of an area. And seconds is 1/60th of it. Well, now we're down to 1/60th of 5,000 feet. We're down to a fairly small number, actually. We can actually call that, yeah, that's within literally a ballpark. That's good enough. But that's also why when you look up stuff on Google, it does degrees and then it's fractions of the degree that go down to a much finer detail. And I see this as being reasonably good degrees, minutes, and seconds, and tenths of a second. But the way it's worded says to me, and I know that I'm retreading over this, I am really suspicious that it's the police padding their affidavit here. So I don't know, I can't tell, but okay, we'll use that. Everybody else is using that exact coordinates. But if it's based almost exclusively on this piece of information that was released probably before May of this year, I don't know. I don't buy it. For some reason, I just can't. Specifically because that location, you'd have to watch the helicopter circling video to find out why I don't think that's where they found them. I think this is a cooked affidavit so they could get on Ron Logan's property and search the whole damn thing. Maybe there was some resistance by him. If I was within, literally, I mean, we're talking, 1,400 feet. If I was within a mile of a location where some people went missing, I would ask the police to come in and immediately search every hunk of property I had. I don't care if I had a distillery. No, search my property. I do not want you to think I have anything going on here. Immediately search it. Go ahead and find my peyote collection or whatever. Because I would not want them to need to get a warrant. You don't need a warrant. You search under the house. Go around with dogs. Get this completely off the list, because I'd be afraid, like he expressed, I'd be afraid that the person had crossed the property. I'd want them to find the evidence. I'd want them to find the kids. I wouldn't just let them search. I'd demand they do it. But then again, I wouldn't have made up a story about where I was at the exact moment that they probably went missing and regretted it because after the fact found out that, oops, I picked the wrong timing to do that. They did search. They did find that they could clear him, or they had no basis for any kind of complaint about him. There were other people, according to the affidavit, you can read it. It's a PDF file. A lot of people said that they were afraid of him, and if I turn up dead, it's Ron Logan who did it. Anyway, it's 1,400 feet from the Logan residence. May have been a magic number they plotted so that they could definitively say, yeah, we need to have access to the space. They put up the rationale, but this sounds like they're cooking the numbers for distance. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about it. Other than that, I will try to include an Imgur. I'm supposed to say Imgur instead of Imager. I'm going to call it Imager. An Imager link will be included with this video that will lead to the document with all of the watermarking removed so it's a little bit clearer to read. And I'm going to try to turn it into a PDF image to text. I don't know why they didn't just embed the text. And again, I can't even vouch for the authenticity of this because it's not something that was posted by the police department for public consumption that I can find a link to. I want the link to where they got it from, not that they were able to put it up on Doctoroid. It doesn't seem to say that it was put up there by the police. So I don't know if this is authentic. So I got a lot of questions here, but again, it looks like somebody's padding an affidavit so they can get a warrant, which happens all the fucking time, and I can't authenticate it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good